All right, Avan, let's get an insight from the management at MakeMyTrip this morning. We've got Mr. Magow joining us. Good morning, Rajesh. What's the kind of uptick you're seeing? People flocking to get away to some of these, some of these towns, and whether it be booking packages or whether it be slightly longer stays. Clearly, there is a trend outward. Are you seeing that pick up across flights as well as bookings for stays?
Yes, most definitely, especially for the last good about 4 or 5 weeks, I would say, starting from 15th August onwards, as far as leisure segment is concerned. And one of the typical use case that we have seen, just coming up, and there is actually a pent-up demand on that particular travel use case, is just traveling nearby, drivable distance, just picking up either your own car or you're booking a cab, and, you're comfortable just going with either the expanded family or just a couple of your friends who, you're comfortable with that you can be together, mask down kind of a thing, and chock-a-block nearby destinations. And some of these destinations, so let's talk about Delhi, for instance, or NCR. On Delhi-Jaipur highway, the people are just, going to about, let's say, 200 kilometer or miles travel and getting themselves checked into a resort to spend a day or two. So that's the kind of, typical leisure use case that we've seen picking up. And similarly, Bangalore, similarly, Maharashtra and East, we saw less, given that, there has been situation out there which is not necessarily fully improved. But Mumbai just opened up, increased the number of flights. So there's a lot of travel that is happening between now Delhi and Mumbai and including Kolkata, because that opened up recently as well. So, you would see more and more traffic, in times to come in the airports for sure. Yes, there would be some fear and apprehension in terms of social distancing that you probably would have noticed in some cases. The other day, I was actually there at the airport dropping my son who was flying to Hyderabad just to join his academy. And I saw actually a lot of precautions being taken. I think the onus also lies in some of us who are traveling, just to make sure that we take all the precautions. But I can assure you, airport authorities, the flight operators, even the ground transport operators, and we have been actually working very, very closely with all of them to make sure that we do everything possible to make the travel look pretty safe and secure now.
So in leisure, clearly, whether it be from Bombay to Goa or drivable distance like Karjat, Nasik, or like you said, from the capital, whether it be anywhere in the hills, Mussoorie, Rishikesh, or even Rajasthan. But what about when it comes to business, when it comes to essentials? Are you also seeing an increase in number of flights for people that are just going about, getting back to normal, so to say?
Absolutely. And, when it opened up early, it was actually all of it was essential travel, visiting family, visiting back home kind of a travel. And that has continued, ever since the Unlock 1.0 was announced. And the domestic flights were the first one to be announced. And the interstate ground transport travel and intra-city travel, there were many restrictions, but flight had opened up before. And, all of the travel was actually just more essential. People just before the unlock happened, they were kind of stuck in different places. They wanted to go back and meet their families and friends and so on. That has continued. But what we have also seen over the last now about month and a half, that there is small and medium business enterprises kind of business travel also happening, both on our corporate platform called MyBiz as well as on our B2C platform. So clearly there is, I guess you can relate it with the overall economic activity opening up across the board with every version of Unlock, starting from 1.0 to getting to 3.0. So, you have now pretty much seen across the board all kinds of segments that are traveling up. I'll give you an example of just yesterday or day before yesterday, as we know, that 80 additional trains were announced. I mean, on top of good about 200 trains that were flying earlier. And we saw like day on day some 80% jump on the booking just yesterday. So, and that's pretty much essential. I guess VFR kind of a segment that would be traveling. And similar is the trend that we've seen, for our bus segment as well, especially coming in from north, northern part of India. Given that the southern part of India, there were a lot of still restrictions, and we are now seeing that is kind of opening up as well, whether it is Tamil Nadu, Andhra Pradesh, or Karnataka. There is a lot of the travel that is opening up interstate as well, and all of it is, essential travel, going back to probably from hometown going back to work, or in some cases actually.
Right. Could you broadly tell me that in terms of the quantum of holiday, when I say quantum, not the number of holiday, but let's say the price, the entry points, what is different this time? I mean, how is it so different?
It's a very good question. And given the occupancy levels are pretty low, I mean, the industry was hit very badly. So there are great deals available. So there is definitely price correction that is happening as far as hotel bookings are concerned, or, just packages bookings are concerned, if you will. I mean, those packages are, by the way, very short haul packages right now, just a couple of nights. It's definitely not long haul travel that has opened up, and it'll take some time for that to open up as well. But we've seen like, anywhere between 20 to 25% kind of a drop, but just in terms of, just trying to correct the price or more to push the occupancy levels right now. But we haven't seen that happening for flights, for instance. So flights has been just, if you compare it with pre-COVID level of pricing, etc., on different sectors, it's generally flat or thereabouts. But we haven't really seen that dropping, and that is a function of clearly, the load factors are still low, although the overall flights capacity that has been allowed to open up is now 65%, as I'm sure you know that. But from a demand perspective, it's still about 30-odd%. It's growing day on day, week on week, month on month, but it's still taking time to get to that kind of a level. So and given the load factors are low, I guess there is also a focus on yield management, giving the overall sector, the overall financial health of the sector. So that's pretty much the same. It's not necessarily moved a great deal. But as far as hotels or overall hospitality industry is concerned, there has been a correction of good about 20-25%, especially in the places where there is some demand coming up.
Because of pandemic, I'm sure there would be a shift, and there would be a preference towards better brands because they offer better hygiene, or for because they promise for social distancing, they promise for more more hygiene and safety norms. Do you see that there could be a shift towards higher brands, and you instead of taking a 5-day holiday, you may take a 4-day holiday, but you would prefer better brands and better quality of service?
You're absolutely right. And I would say one step before, that in consumers' mind, this is the topmost concern right now, and it is likely to stay for some time. And therefore, from that perspective, they would obviously prefer whichever service provider or hotel and accommodation. Now, whether it is a high-end hotel or a mid-segment hotel, is able to provide that comfort of hygiene and safety protocols, they are going to get more demand initially for sure. Actually, with this thought in mind, we took that initiative for working with our partners, especially for independent hotels, because they are the ones also who are suffering a hell of a lot during this crisis. While the high-end chain hotels, they have the wherewithal, and they've been able to put their own independent safety and hygiene protocol programs very, very effectively. And some of the chains are actually participating in our program as well. But keeping that thing in mind, even for independent hotels, we actually started that program called My Safety on MakeMyTrip and Go Safe on Go IBBO brand, and which was focusing on following the WHO guidelines in terms of what are the safety and hygiene protocols that a particular property should follow, have that list down, and I've in fact tied up with a top consulting firm to actually audit that as well on a frequent basis. And a lot of the partners are actually participating on that. So you're absolutely right. That is going to be the most important thing in consumers' mind right now, as we have seen, as we've done focus groups and got some consumer insights. And that is something that we've been addressing, from the word go, trying to address. And if you go on our platform, you will see a lot of the information related to that. And we are trying to bring more and more partners into that program so that everybody gets benefit out of that.
Sure. Rajesh, could you give me insights on whether this is more of an urban trend? People living in condos and smaller apartments feel a bigger urge and need to really step away for these small getaways. When it comes to both hotels as well as resorts and airline ticket sales, are there any routes, any cities which are seeing higher traction as opposed to the rest of the country?
No, you're probably right at some level. The leisure segment that has opened up, you're absolutely right. It is probably the urban phenomena as of now. People who could obviously afford and also, were fatigued mentally, physically, confining themselves to their homes, and they are the ones who are stepping out. But when we see some of the other segments, let's say coming in from smaller cities going to the hills, so there's a lot of the traffic actually. Weekend traffic tends to go from Chandigarh and the neighboring areas into the hills. Similarly, on the Uttarakhand hills and all of that. So I think, relatively speaking, yes, it is more like an urban phenomena, but expanding rapidly to the tier 2, tier 3 cities as well. But rest of the other travel, as I was just mentioning earlier, overall, we are seeing a lot more essential travel, business travel, visiting family kind of a travel, if you look at it on an overall basis. So, so domestic flights today, by the way, from a demand perspective, is back to about 30% level if you compare it with the pre-COVID level. So, if you look at that overall number, out of which predominantly it is other segments, we are seeing just, kind of green shoots coming out of the smaller leisure segments, and that's more traveling, like I said, more ground transport or picking up their own car and going. And a small piece of that is also happening on some of these, the Goa bookings that you've started seeing. And so it's kind of opening up. And some of this, by the way, is also future booking. We've also opened up, again, working with our partners that they can actually book, some time out, not necessarily immediate travel, and with the flexibility of cancellation as well. So that has also worked out quite well. So people want to plan for their holiday, but they also want the flexibility given, anything could potentially happen and they might have to cancel their trip. And that is the trend that's also picking up. So, so few advanced purchases that we are seeing, those sectors are more, the Goas and the Coorgs or the, other leisure destinations, if you will, in some part of that actually, at some point in time, hopefully Northeast would open up as well. But that's like, booked in advance. But other segments are more just, going to the nearby destination. And that seems to be at this point in time more an urban phenomena, yes.
What about international travel though, Rajesh? Is that only restricted to need-based? Because I personally don't know of anyone who is planning an international holiday just yet.
No, you're absolutely right. In fact, the commercial scheduled flights ban was extended till 30th September. So normal commercial flights are not flying. The scheduled commercial flights are not flying until September 30th. And we would know, I guess, on October 1st what comes next. But what is happening is very interesting concept is this whole, the air bubble concept, if you will, just having kind of bilateral arrangements with some of these countries who are willing to agree on the protocols, so whether it should be a test here or a test at the destination. In fact, we've been recommending that heavily as well, even for the commercial scheduled flights, that if you are able to just put in place the test and the reports just before, and these days you can have those test reports coming up very, very quickly, just before the departure, and then you land at the particular destination, and then at that point in time the basic tests happen. That might be the way to opening up the international travel overall in a big way. But for now, these are restricted use cases that are being allowed within the air bubble arrangements that has been announced in certain countries, whether it's US, UK, Germany, UAE, Maldives. As you know, Maldives is, by the way, is the first leisure destination that is absolutely ready and to receive the tourists, and they have the arrangement worked out the arrangement with India as well. So that will be the first international destination, and we've, by the way, seen some traction happening on bookings already on that. That is the only sector, and that's more like in the time frame of travel time in October and beyond. But the bookings are happening now. So you're right. International travel is very restricted right now, limited to this air bubble concept, and restricted and very limited visa use cases. But there is this one good example of Maldives that likely to open up first, and maybe because of IPL, this whole UAE sector, but could open up next.
Okay, we'll chat again then once commercial flights actually kick in and resume operations. Rajesh, good to have you on the show and get in, very candid observations on all the trends that we're seeing across the hotels as well as the aviation space.
Thank you. Thanks for having me. Thanks.